Somebody IM'd something to the effect of like, how much fear are Jews in? Why are they so concerned about anti-Semitism? And look, anti-Semitism is on the rise. I have definitely heard second or third hand stories where supposedly people's kids are nervous at school because of anti-Semitism. And I imagine that there are places where that's the case. I know that I have two kids in school. Neither one of them have reported anything even remotely like that. I have always been a magnet for anti-Semites. Maybe they've moved on from me. Certainly on Twitter for months and months and months, almost the primary reply I got about anything was telling me the news that I was Jewish or that I was a Jew, breaking. But I have no doubt that anti-Semitism is on the rise. How much, it's very difficult to tell because we have an ADL now that includes protest of Israel being anti-Semitism. Remember, when people say like, why is Israel being singled out for this? Do we have another country in this country? Is there another country? It's possible. I'm not aware of it. But if I protest Ireland or England, would that inhibit my ability to get a state contract if I was, let's say, a speech therapist and helping out in schools? Would that inhibit it in 26 states in the country? No.
Does Ireland have a domestic political action committee that is registered within the United States as opposed to like one that's foreign, as it is for most other countries in the world, that is so robust that it's able to make or break elections? Does Ireland have that?
I mean, the point is that the conflation by Israel of Zionism and Judaism so that they can conflate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. Or never mind anti-Zionism. How about just like, I'm against you are arming a country to go and kill tens of thousands of civilians. I mean, you don't even have to have some type of ideology behind it. You can simply be protesting the genocide. You can be protesting the support of that genocide. We have a Congress right now that is that just appropriated aid to Sudan for people who are starving. We have a representative who is sent to mediate in the Civil War. I think it's Tom Perello, who had been like a Virginia congressman, who's actually pretty good, that Blinken appointed to go and mediate in Darfur. And I can assure you that mediation, are we going to try and position ourselves so that we get our favored party comes out ahead? Undoubtedly. But I also imagine the primary thing is to stop the killing and to fend off starvation. The idea that we would be paying one side to support their immiserating the population would be absurd. It would be absurd.
And can we just put this up, Bradley? I wanted to bolster my point to what you're saying, Sam, about people like, why all this focus on Israel? There is no comparison to any other country, because there was this Ken Vogel of the New York Times last month made this point that stuck out to me, because someone said there are 9 countries that spend more on Israel on lobbying the U.S. Qatar alone, one of the biggest state sponsors of terrorism, spends 35% more. And that's obscuring the fact that, and Vogel points this out, this doesn't include AIPAC, which spent far more than any of these countries' lobbying budgets, $650 million from 2016 to 2022, but does not file under FARA because it is domestic. None of these other... Yes, that's not even including Kufi, right? None of these other countries have domestic lobbies anywhere close to that. So that's why there's special attention on it, because of how
absurd.
intimately it's involved in our politics.
All right, but my point was also, we're talking about anti-Semitism.
Yes.
Here is the Republicans now are going to attack Joe Biden for in any way conditioning any aid to Israel, and the way they're going to do it is they're going to make it because this is a question of anti-Semitism. Here is Representative Aaron Bean, Republican from Florida. This is just file this one right next to, there are kids in second grade who are identifying as cats, and so we need cat litter in the classrooms.
Time. The Holocaust ended in 1945. The hate behind it has not. Anti-Semitism is repugnant in all its forms, but the topic of today's hearing is particularly troubling. It's hard to grasp how anti-Semitism has become such a dominant force in our K through 12 schools. Some kids as young as second grade are spewing Nazi propaganda, which begs the question, who has positioned these young minds to attack the Jewish people? The very need for this hearing is a travesty. The aftermath of October 7th has revealed some of the ugliest, most deprived ideas once marginalized from polite society, and our education system has failed to stop it. It's not just anti-Israel, it's anti-American, it's anti-democracy. Our witnesses today three of our witnesses represent some of the largest school districts in the...
Okay. I would bet that anti-Semitism, if it is, I don't know if it's necessarily Nazi propaganda, maybe, is coming from their parents. And it probably comes along with the racism that all those second graders are also spouting. You know what we would need is like some type of initiative that might provide some diversity in these schools where we have this rampant racism. I mean, I wish there was a program where we could have like, I don't know, where people could sort of like look into the way, so some equity and sort of like how maybe things like anti-Semitism and racism exist around us and we're not even quite sure of it. And there are structures that do this. I mean, these would all be great ideas.
You could teach inclusion on top of that.
You could teach inclusion. There would be all these different things. And then, of course, I mean, if we wanted to find where the bastion of anti-Semitism and racism is in this country, I guess maybe we wouldn't want to try and find the racism, according to this guy. Play the clip of the racism hearings that that guy attended.
Representative Bean?
Yeah.
Yeah, on May 3rd, less than a week, I'm reading this.
Where's that clip?
Oh,
there
Sorry.
isn't one. And it's just the anti-Semitism.
My bad.
You know, I wonder maybe he should have a town hall with some of his voters, because I suspect.
Representative Bean has tweeted that Chuck Schumer, the highest ranking Jewish official in Congress, is refusing to, quote, stop the border invasion by design. He also, I did not realize that Mayorkas is Jewish. He said that when he supported the impeachment of Mayorkas, that he supports the border invasion. Tweeted on April 16th, I voted twice to impeach Secretary Mayorkas. It's time for the Senate to hold a trial, render a verdict, and hold Secretary Mayorkas accountable for his role in the border invasion. Now, a lot of experts on hate point out that this is an invocation of the Great Replacement Theory, which is one of the most widely disseminated anti-Semitic conspiracy theories on the right in this country, and has motivated things like anti-Semitic hate crimes and shootings and other. The Buffalo shooter, I believe, was somebody who believed in the Great Replacement Theory. So, you know, the problem...
And to be clear, the Great Replacement Theory is that the Jews orchestrate this as a way of, I mean, it's also, you know, the part of the broader sort of the way that sort of the KKK would deal with black people is like, well, black people are inferior, but the reason why they're not in society, like I'm not superior to them. It's because the Jews are the ones who are sort of controlling and running the whole thing.
Puppet
and
masters.
Puppet mastering them.
Right. The Republicans are also now saying that Soros is funding these protests. It's like they're putting a hat on a hat, or they're using. These are all virulent anti-Semites. I mean, I look at that guy, that representative, his face, and he looks like just a picture of a Republican racist in this country. And I'm supposed to believe he earnestly cares about anti-Semitism. All forms of hate are interconnected.
He rejected it in all forms.
I forgot. Like, I know it's a lot to expect Republican politicians to engage in intersectionality, but that's the kind of reason that we do that stuff, is because all forms of hate are interconnected. And Republicans have decided that they're going to create a moral panic about anti-Semitism. And in that fashion, they're actually taking away from a broader education about hatred and racism and anti-Semitism, because they all are they all are a part of the same through line.
You know who does get intersectionality? Katie Britt. Your favorite Republican senator. They let her out of the kitchen to talk about what Jewish students are going through on college campuses.
Oh.
And she knows because she knows.
This administration refusing to protect our Jewish brothers and sisters as they want to go to class, they want to eat peacefully in dining halls, be okay in their dorms. I remember that discrimination upon race, denigrating someone upon race, blocking someone from a classroom wasn't okay in the 1960s. Do you hear me? And it is not okay today. This administration needs to stand up and stand against anti-Semitism. What else they're failing to learn from? I mean, yesterday we celebrated 79 years since VE Day, the victory there in Europe, liberating Europe from Nazi terror. Earlier this week, we honored those 6 million Jews that died in the Holocaust. You're at a place in this country, a Harvard-Harris poll just came out, where it said between the ages of 18 and 29, 1 in 5 of those individuals don't believe the Holocaust even existed.
Pause it for one
And
second.
on that note,
all right, I just want to, first off, she is incredibly nervous. It is weird. She's got like that Crowder thing. Like you can hear her heart beating like at a mile a minute as she tries to like sort of gasp for air. I wonder if part of that is like she realizes like I may be alienating some of my voters.
Yeah, right.
The incidents of Jewish students being blocked to go from going to class have been so incredibly minimal, and more often than not, the people are trying to protect the encampments, particularly following what we saw at UCLA. That there's good reason to do so. I mean, those ADL types, the JDL types and the Proud Boys can be pretty vicious. But the idea that she's sitting there and making these connections is hilarious. It's amazing how nervous she is. But go ahead. Go back a little bit.
Holocaust. You're at a place in this country, a Harvard-Harris poll just came out, where it said between the ages of 18 and 29, 1 in 5 of those individuals don't believe the Holocaust even existed.
Many of those people are her voters.
And on that note, I think it's important that we continue to tell the story of October 7th. When we talked to the Israeli officials, we mentioned 9/11, and they said, yes, it's similar, but I want you to understand why it's different. These disgusting, barbaric terrorists, they're not going after soldiers. They're coming after babies and beheading them. We must do more. Never again is now.
They actually, 1/3 of the people they killed on that day were soldiers. They attacked 2 military bases. I'm just stating for for factuality. They did, in fact, yes.
And the beheaded
kill
babies.
hundreds.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
They did kill hundreds at a, the music festival and on the kibbutz, no doubt. But they do go after military targets as well. The beheading baby story, I think, I don't believe that one was found to be true.
Debunked in November?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not in any way to condone or forgive the atrocities that were committed on that day, but just to point out that she's talking out of her arse.
You know how like method actors are with like apparently Daniel Day-Lewis was like, you can't call me anything but like Mr. President when filming Lincoln.
Right.
I fear or that Austin Butler after Elvis like couldn't get out of his Elvis voice despite being from Anaheim.
She's still in kitchen mode.
Yes, I fear that Katie Britt has not been able to get out of the State of the Union response cadence, so that every time she appears in front of a microphone, she's still smiling.
She's also super worried, I think, too.
And
like that people are going to remember.
Her.
She does anything that has any public thing, then she's.
People are forgetting October 7th, Sam. Everyone needs to be in a constant state of fight or flight and think that Hamas is coming for them in order to justify a continuation of a genocide. So keep remembering. Don't look at the 40 October 7ths that have happened since then to the people of Palestine. Just keep yourself in a constant state of fear. It makes it easier for us to propagandize you.
Here is Donald Trump outside of the courthouse where he is facing criminal charges. And he is once again vying with Ben Shapiro to be Pope of the Jews. Some 35% of Jews back in February were found to disagree with Israel's handling of this conflict. That's back in early February. That was over 2.5 months ago, 3 months ago now, almost. But here is Donald Trump. We heard this line during, frankly, his presidency when he moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem, where he declared Jerusalem, the America accepting it as the capital of Israel. When he had offered, provided for Israel many of the, I think, incentives and beliefs that they could get away with what they're getting away with today, frankly. But here is Donald Trump.
What Biden is doing with respect to Israel is disgraceful. If any Jewish person voted for Joe Biden, they should be ashamed of themselves. He's totally abandoned Israel, and nobody can believe it. I guess he feels good about it because he did it as a political decision. You have to do the right decision, not the political decision.
He says this all the time. Is that is that going to be issued into the House Antisemitism Committee's records? Because does he have
exactly.
Should he be saying that?
He's
Mr.
telling
Blonde
Jews
hair?
you're not a good Jew if you have a political disagreement with me. I don't know. That seems a little anti-Semitic.
Yeah,
there was a time where the idea of you having dual loyalty to Israel was considered anti-Semitic. And now he's saying if you don't have dual loyalty to Israel, then you're a bad Jew.
Right. I was just remembering this. In 2015, Trump told the Republican Jewish coalition that, quote, you want to control your politicians, and suggested the audience use money to exert control. In the White House, he said Jews who vote Democrats are, quote, very disloyal to Israel. And now he's doing the same thing. So, come on.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.